right? So thank you for joining. 6 o'clock, so we'll commence. These are the suggested improvements for feedback broadly, right? So this is what though the class, I mean, the WhatsApp group has nearly 190 people. We've received response though only from very few, from only 17, right? So I am drawing an inference that the others had nothing to add, right? So with that, let's just examine what's the broad feedback from the devotees. Let's just have a look at what they've said so far and what needs to be changed. Okay, so broadly I'm happy. I mean, I'm very happy about this, and also just understand that anything above 90 I'm not going to pay much attention to, right? So 1 out of 10, of course there's always going to be exceptions. So like an arbitrary cutoff mark would be about 89 to 90. So anything above 90 is fine, right? So I mean, the first one is perfect. I'm very happy about this. I'm able to convey the fundamental ideas in a clear and a precise manner. 100% of you, I mean, all the 17 of them, those who have responded at least, have said yes. Okay. And then this was the cause of little concern, because there are few who say that adequate information is not given about the slokas discussed in the class. So which is why I wanted to have I wanted to correlate this to the comment section, but then in the comment section I was not able to correlate. So there was no reason stated as to why they feel that adequate information is not given. So it's just a statistic as it is, right? And then this was a slight cause of concern too, because quite a few of them, at least half of them, that's about four of them, have at least felt that too much information is given which is not relevant entirely, right? See, you cannot instruct the Bhagavad Gita without touching upon various aspects, right? So when you try to explain something, it has to be based on some example, right? So when you give an example, perhaps the perception is that that example may not be entirely relevant, but then how do you explain the concept in the Bhagavad Gita? So there is some practical difficulty without touching upon those aspects. You cannot, for example, to show that science is not exactly what it is supposed to be and how it is supposed to be utilized. You have to give an example of the Big Bang theory, right? Now we spoke about the Big Bang theory, and we explained a few concepts under it, and then you correlate to Bhagavad Gita, right? That's how usually it is instructed. Otherwise it'll become very dry, because it's high philosophy, right? So you have to explain it by way of examples. Now sometimes the examples may seem irrelevant, but then you will have to correlate it. See, otherwise there's no point otherwise saying about the Big Bang theory in the Bhagavad Gita class, correct? But then you have to correlate it to the verses that is being explained at that time. So that is why those examples have been taken up. So it is all relevant. It's not that it's irrelevant. Perhaps I should think about making it shorter and also more pertinent. Okay, so that's about that. And this is fine. Is the language employed in the class simple and easy to understand? Yes, it is adequate. So no changes is required. Okay, is the class evenly placed? Everybody's saying yes. Okay, and this was, yeah, this is okay. This I understand. Yeah, so we'll keep this in time. Does exceeding the earmarked time of 1 hour of the class cause inconvenience? So 82% says no, but then 82% is a slightly lesser percentage than 90, right? So we'll try and keep it under 1 hour. So no, it will not exceed 1 hour 5 minutes. Okay, let's take it at that. Okay. Do the slides in the PowerPoint presentation contain adequate information? 94% say yes. So no changes there. This was impressive actually. This I didn't expect. So it says, do you feel that more Sanskrit slokas should be included in the class? 70% of the class says yes. That's an overwhelming majority. Okay. So we have with us Sulochana Mataji, who would be reciting the Sanskrit verses. Thank you, Mataji, for joining us. You've been there regularly, but then your workload would increase now. Thank you,
It's
Mataji.
all right, sir.
Very
I'm
good.
happy. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Do you stay for the entire class till the end of the question and answer session, or do you leave class immediately? 88% say they stay for the entire class. A little more and it will be better, but then it is what it is. Do you find the question and answer session interesting? I for a fact, I always thought the question and answer session were very interesting, because the questions that devotees ask are sometimes very profound. You see, and there have been a few questions from this group also, which really makes one think, right, before answering. So those questions, see, what is taught during the class is more of theory, right? Now, how you apply it is what emerges from the question and answer session. So therefore, the question and answer session is also important. So if time permits, please do stay for the entire period. Okay. Does the answer given to the question resolve the question, or is it on an entirely different tangent? So that's 100% say it is addresses the question. And this yes, this is not entirely a very happy picture. Have you started chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as requested every day by me in class, right? So 52% have started chanting. They do one round, okay, and 11%, of course, there's no problem there, they do more than one round. And of course 17.6 is like, again, those are the exceptions. So I'm not taking into consideration 17.6 and 11.8. What I'm really concerned is with this 17.6% who say that no, not yet, they are not started chanting it because they are waiting for the right time. Now yesterday, it was just yesterday in class that I mentioned that now is the right time, right? We saw the verse from King Kulasekara Alvar, right? So he says, I don't know what is going to happen at the fag end, at the evening of my life. So now is the right time to start chanting. So it's not that your spiritual life starts only when your troubles cease. Your spiritual life starts, and then your troubles will take a back seat, right? So it's not the other way around. It's not vice versa. Correct. So for the 17.6% who have said that they are waiting for the right time, please understand that now is the right time. Okay. So don't postpone it. Please just dedicate that 10 minutes for that one round of Maha Mantra, and believe me, the changes will be profound in your way of thought, in the way you react to situations, the way you respond to people. It will really make a big difference. So just try it. Unless you try it, you will not know, isn't it? So just try it at least till the end of this 18-day session, right? Okay, so this was, do you feel that more questions can be taken in the session if the co-host, this is usually asked when there are more questions from the devotees, but apparently, since there are not many questions, this becomes largely irrelevant. So let's leave it at that. And then does the singing of Ashtakam upon the conclusion of the class add value to the class? 100% say yes, which is nice. Okay, if there's one thing that you want to see changed in class, what it would be, right? So very nice positive comments here, and there were one or two that I wanted to advert. Yes, one was this: more weeks and more days. Okay, so this is the starting, this is the beginning, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg. Believe me, there's 700 verses and we are hardly broaching about 200 of them. Okay, so if you want more weeks and more days, please proceed to level 2. Now level 2 starts, it is actually going on right now, so you can join in between and then conclude with another batch, right? So for more days and more weeks, please continue on to level 2. Then we have level 3, and that's all in detail. What you are learning now is just the as I said, the tip of the iceberg, right? A very little part of a very large ocean. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to advert. And then yes, classes can be more interactive. That is, you want me to ask more questions, that can be done. Yes, that can be done, right? Probably what we'll do is we'll have a short revision session either after end of the class or before the class, either way, right? So that we will revise what we studied in the previous chapter, and then we will go on to the new chapter, perhaps that, or at the end of the class, either way, right? Give more real-time examples, which definitely you're giving, but it's more interesting. See, what happens is, as I was saying, when you start giving examples, sometimes it's not perhaps relatable to the message of the Gita, right? So I have to make my examples a little more relatable, perhaps. And there is this also, if you can add on philosophy a little more. I'm very hesitant to do that because the mean age is, I think, around 20-ish, right, of the group. So it's a very fine line to walk. See, if it's a kids batch, then philosophy takes a back seat, right? If the adults batch, then philosophy takes the foremost seat. But then here, it has to be a very thin line that I have to walk, right? So I don't want to go full-blown philosophy, but right, since this feedback has come, perhaps I will include a little more on it. Okay, more in-depth study from each chapter by increasing the session timings to 2 hours at least. Yes, this again is back to the advanced course, right? Because the advanced course is 2 hours. So 2 days, 2 hours, it's Saturday and Sunday. We also have classes on Monday and Tuesday, but then all these are 2 hours, right? So that would be in the advanced batch. The last mantra which Prabhuji recites is too fast for us to repeat. Okay, right. So I'll take care of that. The translation, of course, is just below the mantra, but anyway, I'll just be a little more slower on that. Okay, because I was anxious to get to the question and answer sessions. Then we have sloka reciters waiting for Ashtakam also, so I don't want to keep them waiting. But yes, point taken. Okay, and I just thank you very much for the wonderful comments. It's really humbling to get such kind feedback from the devotees, and it's really a pleasant. It's always pleasant to get good feedback, right? And this one was really nice. This session has changed my life. Hare Krishna. This truly happens because it happened with me, right? So I can take out of I can speak out of experience. This Bhagavad Gita lessons which I took from Namanishta Prabhuji truly changes the outlook. It's very fair comment actually. So right, with that, 10 minutes have passed. We'll commence session today. So thank you all for the feedback. I was hoping for more, but apparently Sundays are a busy day, right? So I'll just leave it at that, and let's commence with class. Okay. Okay, so let's commence. Today is chapter 9, Raja Guhya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge, right? A devotee once asked Srila Prabhupada, if there is one chapter in this 18 set of 18 chapters that I must read, it's this one chapter that I must read in the Bhagavad Gita, which one should it be, right? And Srila Prabhupada said that it should be the chapter 9. It should be the 9th chapter, right? So you recognize now the importance of the chapter, right? So Rajaguhya Yoga is the most confidential knowledge. What is so confidential about this knowledge? When one understands this knowledge, what is their conduct when they figure out how to reach the Lord, right? These are all aspects that we will cover today. Okay, but first, as is the case usually, before we pay our respects and obeisance to Sri Radha Govinda, the temple deities at ISKCON Mangaluru, and our respects and pranams to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadi Satharine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, let's quickly have a look at what we studied yesterday, right? An overview of a recap rather of what we studied yesterday. Yesterday, Arjuna had a lot of questions, right? So 8 questions were asked by Arjuna in the beginning, and Krishna answers 7 of them in the within the first 3 verses, right? So by the 4th verse, all the 7 questions have been answered. The 8th question was how to remember Krishna at the time of death, right? And the rest of the chapter is broadly answering that question, right? So we saw quite a few short stories also. We have one short story today also, okay, about Madhavendra Puri. But right, so then what happens is yesterday we also had this heading of remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, and then Yoga Mishra Bhakti means mixed Bhakti, right? So then we saw about pure Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. Then we saw about the material world and the spiritual world, and we also saw the Goloka chart. Somehow I think because Neha Mataji was not in class, the Goloka chart was not circulated yesterday. So I'll make a note. I'll remind Neha Mataji to send it. Just give me a moment. Right. Right. Then the last heading was the supremacy of pure bhakti in attaining Krishna. So these are the broad headings that we studied yesterday, right? And this is the overview of today's chapter. So only three headings, but it's a very important chapter. Okay, the first one is Bhagavat Aishwarya Jnana, right? That is Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. That is the most confidential knowledge. That's where the chapter's heading comes out from. Okay, and then we see the ways to reach Krishna, the sweetness of exclusive devotion. Right, the verse numbers are also there. So this is the overview, broad overview of what we are going to see today. Okay, Hare Krishna Mataji, 9.1.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Navamodhyayaha. Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yogaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyamyamanasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mokshyashe shubhat.
The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you the most secret wisdom, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence." Idam tu, you see the slide, right? So idam tu means I am going to give it to you. Okay, and anuseve means not envious. So Arjuna is never envious of Krishna, right? So why did Krishna have to give the message to Bhagavad Gita, message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and not to anyone else? There are several answers, but here this is the precise answer, right? So Arjuna was given the message of Bhagavad Gita because he was not envious of the Lord, right? So that is the reason why the Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna and not to anyone else on the battlefield. Krishna could have chosen it to be told to Bhishma. He could have told it to Duryodhan. He could have told it to Dhritarashtra. He excluded all of them and spoke it only to Arjuna because Krishna says that Arjuna did not have any envy, right? So we've also seen, I've explained what is envy. Envy is that I like the fact that you are having something, but I don't want you to have it. I want myself to have it. So that is envy, right? Knowing Krishna, I've mentioned this before also, is a privilege, right? We all try to find worth in our lives, right? We want to be famous, we want to be celebrated, we want to be liked, basically, right? There is so much attachment, right? Now let's take a detached person. If you flip the coin, then you can say that a detached person is attached to his detachment, right? A detached person is attached to his detachment. Therefore, no one is really free, right? The knowledge about Krishna gives us complete freedom from this material existence, right? See, one may say that I'm very pious, I don't envy or dislike anything, I'm very patient. Well, the reality of the fact is that I'm very attached to not envying or disliking, right? So only the knowledge of Krishna makes this attachment to detachment also unreal, right? So it is that knowledge of Krishna is the one which can give us relief, right? One advances by hearing about Krishna, right? One becomes free from the miseries of life when it is heard from a proper source. If I don't hear about Krishna from a proper source, then it is something like something which is called as Shamshan Vairagya, right? Let's assume that someone expired. I explain what Shamshan Vairagya is, right? Let's assume that someone has expired. So the relatives, friends all go to either cremate him or bury him, right, in the crematorium. So when they start gathering around the body, they start speaking with one another, right? They say there's nothing in this world and this is the reality. So they come back home and then it's all philosophy for some time, right? And then they start to feel hungry and then it is back to pavilion, right? That sort of vairagya is called Samshan Vairagya, right? So Krishna consciousness is not that sort of Vairagya. Krishna consciousness gives attachment to Krishna, right? Okay, so that is what is the importance of Krishna consciousness. So my question to you is this heading of the chapter is the most confidential information, right? So when you say something is confidential, it means it's secret, correct? So what is so secret about the knowledge of Krishna? I mean, my understanding that if it has to be a secret, then it has to be kept hidden, right? But what is the secret here? The Bhagavad Gita is an open book. It is available everywhere. Srila Prabhupada had dedicated his entire life to spread this message of the Gita. So where is the secret? What is the secret? Here nothing is hidden, right? Can anyone answer what is the secret that that is being spoken of here? And remember, I'll give you a clue. We are in the Bhakti chapters, right? So that is your clue. So what is the secret that this chapter is going to deal with broadly? Can anyone say in the chat box? Anticipation. What is the secret that is likely to be discussed henceforth? No answers yet on the chat box. Wow, Sarika Mataji, lovely, wonderful, wonderful. Right, that is the answer. Correct. Any other answers before I spell out what it is? Okay, anyway, it's in the chat box, right? So bhakti is the only way to reach Krishna. That is the most confidential knowledge that is dealt with in this chapter. In entire Bhagavad Gita, for that matter, bhakti and devotional service, these are the only ways by which you can reach Krishna, right? So I've told you this before. It's just going up and down the ladder. That is not going to serve the purpose. If you recall, quite a few times I've told this in the class. Right? So merely performing good deeds or merely following the Vedas or the Shastras is only going to give you more material benefits. So you would eventually perhaps land up at Satya Loka, right, where you would have a cleaner plate. The example I gave was in earth, you have a dirty plate, that you get a cleaner plate with one extra roti and one a little bit of extra dal. That's the only difference, right? But the fourfold miseries, right? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, birth, death, old age and disease is everywhere, right? It's not confined only to earth, right? So in order to get over, that's why it's called transcendental, right? You have to transcend these four miseries, right? And how you do that? It is through bhakti and devotional service. And bhakti and devotional service, how do you express? Through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? So that is the only way by which one can reach Krishna. And that is the most confidential information, right, in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's why this chapter is called Rajaguhya Yoga. Okay. So 9.1 is completed. Let's see 9.2. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidamuttamam Pratyakshavagham Dhamyam Susukham Kartum Avyayam.
This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed, right? So there you go. Krishna says that this is the king of education, right? With that one line, he implies that all the education that we have had in the first part of our lives is literally useless, right? But looking on the bright side, if anyone were to ask you today that you've been attending a course on Bhagavad Gita, what is the benefit of reading the Bhagavad Gita? You can tell them that you have learnt the knowledge that is the king of education, right? Raja Vidya. But why is this the king of education? And why is it that what we have studied in school and in college and in universities are not addressed as the king of education? Why is it? Why is it? Any answers, please? Any answers on the chat box? Why is it that this is considered to be the king of education? Again, in anticipation, because I'll tell you what the answer is in a moment. But in anticipation, can you tell me why is this considered to be the king of education? I mean, we have so many subjects. We have physics, chemistry, we have mathematics, we have law, we have humanities, we have commerce. There are so many subjects, and yet Krishna says that this is the king of knowledge, the Raja Vidya of all Vidyas, right? Any answers? No answers from the chat box? Okay, right. So Krishna says that this is the king of education. Okay, there's one answer. Let's see. Okay, Hrithik, perfect. This leads to the attainment of Krishna. That's the answer I was hoping for. Perfect. That's the answer. Perfect. Very nice, Hrithik. Thank you. Right. So as is the case, as is mentioned in the chat box, this is the king of education because it shows the path to Krishna, right? What we have spent in our initial years studying is just trying to learn a skill. We have been practicing only to become proficient in a skill. So skill is not education, right? So education is much more broad-based. The skill that we have learned for all these 25 years, the first part of our lives, only helps us to keep the body and the soul together by making money. Basically, that's what we do, right? For 25 years, we study something and then we implement it for the rest of the life. For what purpose? Because we need to earn money and to keep our body and soul together. But how do you reach Krishna? Because that is the dharma of the soul, right? That is the dharma of the soul. And how do you reach Krishna? That Krishna says is the king of all education, right? So therefore, there's a dichotomy there, right? The first is Vidya, right? Krishna says that Vidya is this knowledge about how to reach Krishna. And the other part is avidya. So everything else Krishna says is avidya, right? So knowledge is vidya, which leads to Krishna, right? Avidya is the entire thing else, all your chemistry, all your physics, all mathematics, all everything else is avidya. And vidya is the thing that takes you to Krishna, right? Now let's proceed to the next part, most secret of all secrets, right? As I said, there's nothing hidden here, right? So I've explained it as much that the main message, the main secret of the Bhagavad Gita is that the only way to reach Krishna is through loving devotional service, right? That's the highest secret. Now there are two other important secrets also which I mentioned. One is that we are not the body, but we are the soul. That's one. And then the soul is the part and parcel of Krishna, right? So these are the three important secrets which is elicited from Bhagavad Gita, right? So threefold things. One, the first secret is the very first lesson, that we are not the body, we are the spirit soul, right? And the second secret is that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, right? And the third important, and that's the most important, see, that's why it's called the most important, the most confidential. If you see the heading of the chapter, it's the most confidential. It's not just the confidential knowledge. The first two fall in that, the confidential knowledge, but the most confidential knowledge is this fact that it is only through devotional service that one gets to go back to Krishna, right? So first is who am I, second is where I am coming from, and third is where I have to go, right? So that is how this chapter is broadly based upon. Okay. Now 9.3. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Ashraddhanaha purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsaravatmani.
Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes, but return to birth and death in this material world. Shastras talk to us like this, right? First they tell us what to do, and then they tell us what not to do. Okay, so there is a positive element and there is also a negative element. Okay, so this sloka is belongs to the second type, that is the one which says you should not do, right, something, right? So this sloka says that you should not lose faith in Krishna, right? That's why those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, full stop, right? That's that's a big declaration that Krishna makes here, right? So one has to be faithful. We saw in the 4th chapter, right? Samsayatma vinasyati, verse 40, if memory serves. Chapter 4, verse 40, Samsayatma vinasyati, which means that a doubting soul will have hardships, right? It will have to be born again and again until it gets that faith. So faith is something that you cannot be without, right? Faith on Krishna. Now, one can have questions. See, that is always there in the path, in the spiritual path. You can have questions, but that is different. Then how do you clarify those questions? You have a spiritual master. You go and ask your spiritual master, right? And how should you ask your spiritual master? There's one word that I'm expecting from the devotees. How do you approach a spiritual master to ask your question? What is the answer? We saw this in chapter 4. Any answers? How do you, I mean, this I've also explained it quite a bit when we dealt with this with this sloka about the spiritual masters, right? So how do you ask your doubts to a spiritual master? Should you challenge him? Should you say that you don't know, like how Duryodhan challenged Dronacharya in the 1st chapter? No answers yet. Try and recall. It's not very difficult. Okay, anyway, the answer is that you must approach the spiritual master submissively. Again, Hirdik has it right, by surrendering. You surrender to Krishna, but then when you, a spiritual master is as good as the Lord himself. He is as the Shastras say, he is Lord, right? So by surrendering, yes, your answer is correct. So you have to ask your questions submissively, right? Pariprashcheya, right? So that is how you should ask your questions. See, and once you ask your questions like that to the spiritual master, he will happily clarify it, right? So doubt is something that you will have, right? But then you will have to overcome it through jnana, right? Now, you can do that, but the problem is you should not lose faith. See, having faith and then having doubts and getting it clarified is one thing, but then to say that I don't have faith, now that is will not serve the purpose. So what happens if that is the approach? What happens is you will just continue to be born. That you'll continue to be being born until and unless you get this realization that one has to have faith on Krishna, right? So until that faith develops, we will be in this vicious cycle of birth and death, right? So you have to realize that it is God who is saying this, right? And if you are going to doubt that, then who else are we going to believe in this world? That's why Bhagavad Gita is given that high pedestal in all religious texts, right? It's because it is spoken by Krishna himself, the ultimate, the supreme personality of Godhead, right? So that is why this Bhagavad Gita is considered to be so sacred in our philosophy, right? So that is 9.3. So let's proceed to the next verse, which is 9.8. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will, it is manifested again and again, and by my will, it is annihilated at the end, right? So let's see also in the next sloka, 9.9. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral, right? So let's just examine 9.8 first. So Krishna says that the whole cosmic order is under Krishna. Why? That's clear, right? He is the creator of the entire cosmic order, right? So therefore, it is a mistake to think that there is anything else that could have caused creation. Science is trying to come out with different theories, but eventually the realization will dawn. It's just a matter of time, right? We'll just see how long have we been doing science, like in the advanced science, in that 100 years. We'll take it from Newton's period. That's when we have Newtonian gravity, right? So from that time, barely around 400 years, we have been doing science, and the creation is trillions of years, is billions of years old, right? So at least what we are having started to do science, advanced science, is just 400 years. It's like 1 minute, not even 1 minute, half a minute perhaps for the entire, if you take it in the entire scale of time, it's not even half a minute, right? So it is that eventually we will get to the point of realization, but then we to get to that realization, there are certain theories which are put up, and then of course there are always problems with those theories. We have examined the Big Bang theory, the steady state theory. All this is to show that science isn't perfect, right? And that it is a developing concept, right? But then this is something which is complete. The scriptures are something which is complete in themselves, right? So it is that these have a higher value in that sense of the term, right? So Krishna is saying that saying this in this explicitly in this verse, right? He says by his will, that it is that everything is manifest again and again. So our philosophy is that it is cyclic, right? Everything is cyclic. It's not just that one big bang and then leading to the cold rip, right? So that is not how it is. It has to be it is cyclic, right? So again and again it happens. It is created again and it is annihilated at the end, right? So we also saw about what happens when at the end of Brahma's lifetime, right? There's the entire total annihilation, and there's just one place which is not annihilated, and that is Goloka Vrindavan. And our duty is to get back to Goloka Vrindavan as soon as possible, right? And this is the book that gives you the directions about how to get back to Goloka Vrindavan, right? And how do you get back to Goloka Vrindavan? Two things, right? Devotional service and surrender. These are the two things that you have to understand. If there's one takeaway from this entire course for you, just keep it this, that you have to surrender to Krishna. That is your entire takeaway. Just that one sentence, okay? And I'll repeat this when we come to chapter 18, because this is the fundamental message that has to be understood from the Gita. Any Gita class that you attend, this is the fundamental message that will be spoken of, okay? 9.9 is another property of Krishna, right? So all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral. Now, Krishna, I've explained this again before. He is not attached to his creation, right? If you don't bother about Krishna, Krishna is not going to bother about you, right? Because he's given you free will, right? So he will let you exercise your free will, right? And he will wait. He has all the time in the world, because time also is his construct, right? So time also does not bind him. He is beyond time, right? So he will wait for you to realize, to get to that realization. And in that realization, to get that realization, we spend time, birth after birth after birth, right? But once you display your realization, of his existence and your surrender, and you start to go towards Krishna, then his approach to you will also change, right? You take one step, he'll take 100 steps, right? So that is another feature of Krishna, which is evident from 9.9. Okay, let's proceed to the next sloka. It is 9.10. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते.
This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Right. So whatever is happening under Krishna's direction. We will see it in a few verses down the chapter. Krishna says he is also death. Right. So everything that is happening under Krishna's direction. Prakriti. Right. All the planets revolve around a system. So birth and death on this planet follow a system. All this is governed by the system that Krishna has created. Importantly, that is working as per the direction of Krishna. Now, Krishna has provided the software, right? And there are engineers, demigods, who are working to ensure a smooth functioning of this system, right? We have to understand this. We have to apply our mind a little more and understand this concept that Krishna is there in everything, right? So it is all according to what Krishna has devised it to be, right? That's why Krishna says in the first line here, the material nature is working under my direction, right? So the material nature is those three elements, right? Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. So everything is under Krishna, right? And they produce what? All moving and unmoving beings. So everything in this universe that you see is what Krishna has done, is what Krishna has created, right? So Krishna specifically refers to it as a rule, right? So it says by this rule, by its rule. Which rule? The material nature's rule, right? So, and material nature is created by Krishna, right? By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. And I mentioned this earlier also. We don't subscribe to a universe theory, right? Ours is a multiverse theory. I explained it when we dealt with the Goloka chart, right? The breathing of Vishnu is so powerful that it creates universes in the plural. Okay, so it's not just that one universe that we can see. There are millions of universes, right? All thanks to Krishna. Okay, right? So we go to the next verse, which is 9.11. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Avajananti mamuda manushim tanumashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram.
Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So this is a clear, it's not very hard to understand. This is very simple verse, right? So Krishna says that mudas, fools, right? So muda means fools. So fools do not know that Krishna is the creator of everything. Okay, they do not know Krishna's supreme dominion over all that is, right? So that is it's an evident meaning. So there's nothing to explain here, right? This is what I meant to say when I explained that we are not able to understand sometimes that Krishna is the ultimate, right? There's a lot of questions. How is Krishna the ultimate? Why that? Why this? So many questions. The problem is we don't read the Shastras, right? Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the supreme Shastra, right? And in that all the glories of Krishna are mentioned, and it says that Krishna is Ishvara Parama Krishna, right? It is then Brahma Samhita also. So there is that fact is beyond doubt. Okay, let's just rest it at that. Okay. So that is 9.11. And that's why Krishna says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form, right? So even though Krishna descends in the human form, the body he carries with him is a transcendental body, right? And people don't realize that. And that's what Krishna is adverting to here, right? So that's 9.11. Let's go to 9.12. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mogasha moga karmano moga jnana vijetasaha Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva Prakartim Mohinim Sritaha.
Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Okay, let me give you an example for this. Today we have so many god men who are very, very popular, right? They have millions of followers. Now that you have come to terms with the basics of Bhagavad Gita, please go back and watch those. I mean, YouTube is replete with their videos. Okay, so just go back and watch and hear what they are saying, right? It would be laughable. You are God, I am God, everybody is God. No, sir, only Krishna is God, right? Krishna says so in Bhagavad Gita. Who are we to dispute that, right? That there is no following of the parampara, there is no pramana, there's no proof. Pramana means proof, right? So nothing, right? I speak as I think. And why are people attracted to such false godmen? Because as stated in this verse, the people are bewildered, right? So such godmen are demoniac, right? So demons in the previous yugas can be identified easily, right? So they have horns on their heads. They look very very gross. So you take Ravana, you take Hiranyakasipu, you can easily identify them, right? But in Kali Yuga, they have become subtler. The demons have become subtle, right? The next group that is growing is in leaps and bounds. In fact, is this group of atheistic people, right? It's stylish to say these days, right? I deny God. There is no God, right? So what is the consequence? What is the consequence of following them is also mentioned in this verse, right? What happens to people who are like that, right? Krishna says that their hopes for liberation, and that's why it's underlined. That's a very important thing, because I am repeating this so very often because it is so important. The dharma of the soul is to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, right? And that is the main purpose of our life. Like Krishna says, if you are going to be demonic, if you're going to be atheistic, there can be no hope of liberation, right? Because you're not going to surrender. If you're denying Krishna, if you're going to deny God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is, Krishna says, no hope for liberation, right? Not only no hope for liberation, your any activity that you do, your culture of knowledge, they are all defeated. So there's no purpose of life itself, right? Because if you're going to deny the basic foundation on which the entire thing is created, then there is no hope for liberation. That's what Krishna says. That is the ultimate punishment that anybody can suffer. Krishna says that further down in the 16th chapter, again about this, when we deal more about the demoniac qualities, we will examine the characteristics of demoniac people in detail in chapter 14, I think, right? So that again, Krishna expands on this concept of this hope for liberation being defeated, right? So we will examine it there also. But just understand that if one is demoniac or atheistic or does not surrender to Krishna, what happens? Your hope for liberation, which is the dharma of the soul, is not satisfied, right? And that is why you're being born again and again. That's why the cycle is not being able to be broken by us. Okay, so that's 9.12. Let's examine 9.13. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakrtimashritah bhajantyananya manaso jnatva bhutadimavyayam.
O son of Pratap, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Okay, story time. Okay, so Madhavendra Puri. This is about Madhavendra Puri. You see the picture on the right, right? So that is Madhavendra Puri. We can speak hours about him. Okay, he used to live in Vrindavan, right? He had only one thing. He just used to sit and chant, right? He never used to ask anything from anyone, right? If someone notices him and brings him food or water, then he will have it. Else he'll not go out looking for food, right? He'll simply starve. Now his reasoning was that if Krishna does not want to take care of me, I'm not fit to live. So that was his reasoning. That's why he never went to anyone asking for food, even, right? Food or water. So unless someone brings it to him, he never used to go and ask for people for food or water, right? And the reasoning behind this is, if Krishna deems it fit that I should live, I will get food. It's not that I have to go and procure it from my own efforts, right? So one day it so happened that that no one brought him food, right? So Krishna, of course, knew this, so he took the form of a very small young boy, okay, and he brought him a little milk, right? Madhavendra Puri, of course, drank it with all bliss, and he dozed a bit after that. Okay. And in the dream, Krishna comes and tells him that I came to you bearing milk and you did not recognize me, right? And then Krishna also tells him that about a deity which was kept in a bush, right, in the forest to hide it from the invaders from other countries. Okay. So Krishna tells Madhavendra Puri to take care of this deity. So Madhavendra Puri wakes up both feeling dejected and also elated at the same time, right? He's dejected because he was not able to recognize when Krishna came to him in the form of a small boy, right? But then he's elated that he came to him in the first place. Okay, so he wakes up in that spirit. He tells the villagers about the dream that he had, particularly about the deity, and they go and look for the deity and they find the deity. Okay, now tell me in the chat box, does anyone know which deity that is? This deity that was found by Madhavendra Puri. Can anyone tell me which deity that is? In the chat box. Any idea what deity it is that was worshipped, which was established by Madhavendra Puri subsequently? No idea? Okay, I'll give you a clue. It's in Rajasthan. No clue yet? No response. Okay, Sulochana Mataji, perhaps I'll give you this answer. Any idea? I think you should know.
Is it Shamsundar?
Close enough. Close enough. I'm looking for a specific name, the temple's name actually. Shamsundar is, yeah, okay. It's not exactly precise.
Jagannath?
Jagannath is in Puri. I said this is in Rajasthan, no? Okay, the answer, I'll give you the answer. The answer is the Nathdwar temple, Srinath, right? So we hear the name Srinath quite often. The deity there is Srinath. So we were talking about Srinath. It's a Nathdwara temple at Rajasthan, right? So the deity there was installed by Madhavendra Puri. That is the great soul that is mentioned in 9.13. So Krishna says, now you see how it's related, no? It's not that it is entirely irrelevant. So I was speaking about Madhavendra Puri to take him as an example for the great soul, and he is under the protection of divine nature. Krishna himself brings milk to Madhavendra Puri, right? When he is not had anything to eat or drink, right? So that the great souls are, therefore it is that Krishna says that the great souls are under the protection of divine nature. And what is the fundamental feature of great souls like Madhavendra Puri? They are fully engaged in devotional service. That's why you will find him chanting throughout the day, right? Taking the Lord's name, because I've mentioned this before. There's no difference between the Lord and the Lord's name, right? So it is that this story became relevant, right? Okay, so that takes care of 9.13. Let's proceed to 9.14. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Very important.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate.
Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So we are carrying forth the symptoms of a great soul, right? So what do? They're always chanting the glories of Krishna, right? So on the right, just see the pictures on the right, the happiness on the face, right? That is one of the reasons why ISKCON spread like wildfire in the West, right? You would find devotees on this street in Kirtan so happily chanting that people started to wonder what is bringing them so much joy, right? So they tried, right? They joined the organization and they tried chanting, and they also experienced the same bliss, right? So that is how it spread like wildfire in the West, right? This chanting brought so much happiness to the people there, right? And once they join the organization, they get the taste of the chant of the Mahamantra. There's no looking back, right? Right, that is what the great souls do. What do? They chant the glories of the Lord with great determination, right? It's not just chanting. They chant without fail, with great determination. Come what may, we have to chant. That is the attitude of great souls, right? And then what else do? They bow before the Lord and they serve the Lord with devotion. That's why again and again Krishna is saying about devotional service, right? Again, this is an example here, because this the last line of this verse says, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion, right? So that's why devotional service is so important. That's why Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned yesterday, is a love letter from Krishna to humanity entirely, right? So we'll see a few other verses which will consolidate that fact that Bhagavad Gita is the love letter. Let's see about 9.17. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Pita ahamasya jagato mata data pitamahah vaidyam pavitram omkaraha riksama yajurevacha.
I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of the knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. Right? So I'm not going to explain this. This is very clear, right? So Krishna says that he is the father and the mother and the support and the grandsire. Now you see where the love letter is coming from, right? So Krishna is everything in the universe. That's what Krishna is saying. And we've already seen that in the previous chapter, we've seen that Krishna is also Om, right? So that is being repeated here, that he is the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. This message we've already seen it before. Now Krishna explains that he is also the Vedas, right? The Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Veda. Okay, so that's 9.17. Let's see about 9.18. Krishna says, I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. Right? So 9.19. O Arjuna, I control heat, the rain, and the drought. I am immortality, and I am also death personified. Both being and non-being are in me, right? So previously I had mentioned that Krishna says that he is death. This is the verse I was referring to, right? So 9.19, Krishna says that he is also death. Now, if you wait till chapter 11, there also Krishna says that he is death personified. Okay, that's the Oppenheimer verse, because Oppenheimer, the nuclear physicist, quoted that verse when the nuclear bomb was tested. We'll be having a visual of that interview also. Okay, so these are all characteristics of Krishna, right? Krishna says he is the goal, right? So one should all great souls for that matter make Krishna the goal to be attached, because that satisfies your dharma. That's the highest aim that a person can have, because the dharma, satisfaction of the dharma of the soul, is the most important thing, right? And all Krishna says, he is the goal, he is the sustainer, he is the master, he is the witness. How is he the witness? Because he is Shirodaksha Vishnu, right? In all our hearts, right? Therefore it is, he observes, therefore he is the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend, right? So Krishna is the most dear friend. This is a very self-explanatory verse, so I'm not going to spend much time on both of these verses. Let's go to the next verse. This is 9.20. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. They take birth on the planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights, right? And 9.21, when they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasures, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. This is the problem that we are faced with today. You see, what happens when we do good deeds, we get good karma, right? And what is the consequence of getting good karma? You go to higher planets. That's why Krishna says here, he gives the example of the planet of Indra, right? So what happens when you go to the planet of Indra? You get to enjoy godly delights, right? So you enjoy there. Okay, then what happens? You have this credit. It's like a bank, right? So all your punyas are your credit, right? So as you go and experience all the godly delights in this kingdom of Indra, this credit slowly starts reducing, right? So the more credit you have, the more time that you can spend at Indra's place. Now, as and when this credit lapses, and your stay in heaven is no longer warranted, you're pushed back down to this material world. That's what Krishna says in 9.21, that when they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. So there is no escape, right? So we go up, we spend our money there, money in the sense of punya, you come back again, then again you are put into this rigmarole, right? Now again you have to do good deeds, again you have to earn punya, and again you have to go up. Now there's no guarantee of that, because it's not guaranteed that you're going to do punya alone, right? Because you have the opportunity to do bad things also. Now, if you do bad things, what happens? You go down the lower levels of the of this ladder, right? So it's not, so it's a very dangerous place to be in, right? Because it's not a guarantee that you will do only punya. If you do papa, then you go down and you start suffering more, right? So it is that this problem of going up and down is not the object of our existence. Our object of the existence is to break out of this. This is a prison, right? This 15 lokas are actually a prison, right? So we have to break out of this prison. You have to escape from this prison. And Krishna would say a little further down that the only way to escape this is to surrender to me and render devotional service. This is why I'm repeating this again and again. So please understand this message, that it is only through devotional service and surrender to Krishna can you break out of this jail. It is not sufficient if we do just good deeds without surrendering to Krishna. If you do good deeds, you will just get some money in the bank so that you can go and spend it at Indra's place, right? It's like a theme park. Okay, so you go there and have fun, but you can have fun only for a limited period of time. You have to come back to this world, right? And when you come back to this world, there is no guarantee that you'll do further punya. So as soon as possible, you have to get out of this. And that is why chanting of the Mahamantra becomes so very important in this Kali Yuga, right? Right. So that is the explanation of 9.20 and 9.21. But please understand this. This is very important. Okay. Any questions about this? Please do ask in the question and answer session. Let's proceed to the next verse. 9.22. Ananyasintayantoma. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Ananyaschintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham.
Okay, question first before I explain this sloka. Has anyone heard Yogakshema Mahamaham before attending any Bhagavad Gita course? It's a very popular slogan, a motto rather, of a very big institution in India. Anyone in the chat box? Let's see. Yes, Mataji. Which Patanjali? Okay, but as an institution, I was talking about. Patanjali is a person. As an institution, I was talking about. It's a motto of a very huge institution in India. Yes, Swini Mataji.
Can I answer, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sorry.
Can I answer?
Yes, Mataji, please.
LIC.
Yes, Mataji. Correct. Precisely on the dot. LIC's motto is Yogakshemam Vahamaham. Let's see what it means. Okay. So 9.22. This is the translation. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Right? That's the meaning of Yogakshemam Mahamyaham, right? I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Right? For those without any diversion, that is for those who serve Krishna with devotion, right? Ananyas. Without Ananyas means without diversion, right? Chintayanto means concentration, and yanto mam is me, right? So those Krishna says those who serve me, concentrating on me without diversion, for them what does the Lord do? Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. He preserves what they have and gives them what they lack. So one person doesn't have everything, right? So when do you get everything? You get everything when you serve Krishna with devotion, right? And you concentrate on Krishna and you meditate upon him, right? So that is when that's when Krishna says, I will preserve what you have. Every person has something in him, right? So that is preserved, and no person has everything, right? So what that person lacks is given by Krishna, right? And gives them what they lack, right? So that is the meaning of Yogakshemam Vahamyaham, right? That's why LIC had this as its motto. Now, it's important to note the form in which Krishna is worshipped, right? So Krishna says here transcendental form. Okay, as stated before, Krishna does not say unmanifested form or impersonal form or light or energy. Okay, what is said is transcendental form. That is the form in which you would find Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, the two-handed form, correct? So that is 9.22. Let's go to 9.23. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Epyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhipurvakam.
Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. Now we saw this in chapter 7 also. If you recall, we dealt with demigods there. So we have referred this in detail in chapter 7, where Krishna says that whatever you do to the other gods are actually offered to me. Because you remember the sloka where Krishna says that he is the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices, right? So yaktaram bhuktaram yagna tapasam, right? So that verse says very clearly that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices. Okay, so that the verse is self-explanatory. So Krishna says that you may sacrifice it to all other gods, but whatever you sacrifice to the other gods, I am the one to whom it is actually being offered. It's just that you don't understand it yet. That self-realization will come. That's why Krishna says in chapter 7 that if you have faith in a demigod, Krishna makes that faith stronger, because you can follow that demigod and eventually you get that self-realization after following the demigod that Krishna is supreme, right? So you shift your attention and your focus back to Krishna, right? That is how demigods are. That's why Krishna says he will strengthen that resolve, that faith that we have in other demigods, right? That's why he does that. Okay, so that's 9.23, 9.25 now. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yanti devavrata devan pitrayanti pitravrataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajino pimam.
Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. Right? So this is the second time that Krishna is saying this. Again in chapter 7, Krishna has said it, and I gave you the example of buying a ticket to Chennai and hoping to land up at London, right? That's not going to happen. If you are following a demigod, you will go to the planet of the demigod. If you're following the, if you're praying to a ghost or a spirit, you will go to that, take birth among such beings. That's what Krishna says here, right? So you just realize that devatas cannot help you. See, there's one thing that none of the demigods can offer, right? And that is liberation. The soul has to go back to Krishna, and only Krishna can grant that. For your material benefits, your material requirements, all the demigods are there. That's why perhaps Krishna has even delegated it to them, right? He doesn't want to be bothered by all this requests for material things, right? So Krishna is the only thing that which distinguishes them. Perhaps the main thing that distinguishes Krishna is this ability to grant liberation. Only Krishna can grant liberation, right? Worship Krishna and you will reach Krishna. That is the main takeaway from this verse. The last sentence, those who worship me will live with me. And where is this living with happening? It is at Goloka Vrindavan, right? So that is this the meaning of this term. If you go to Lord Shiva, right, and ask him to give me bhakti for Krishna, he'll give it to you so gladly. Okay, that not a moment to wait. It will be immediately granted. Why? Because the bhakti comes from Krishna himself, right? That's the reason. Okay, and that's how our prayers must be. I've already adverted to this about how our prayers must be, right? In chapter 2, while explaining the surrender sloka where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, I explained about how our prayers must be, right? That must be the way how our prayers must be. It's not, it's really annoying perhaps for the gods that you go and ask them for material benefits. Give me wealth, give me health, give me a good computer, give me a good mobile. That is not what the gods are there for, right? You have to transcend that. That's why it is called transcendental knowledge, right? So let's go on to the next sloka, 9.26. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yat karoshi yat nashasi yat juhoshi dadasi yat. Sorry.
9.2.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyopakhritam ashnami prayatatmanaha.
If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit or water, I will accept it. So what can you offer Krishna? Leaf, flower, fruit and water, right? And how do you do it? You do it with love and devotion, right? So not without it. Without love and devotion, there is no use offering it to Krishna, right? Therefore it is that one should strike a relationship with Krishna. It's a permanent relationship, right? It transcends births and deaths, right? So it's not like a relationship that one is trying to strike up with a mere mortal, be it a spouse, be it a brother, be it a son or a daughter, be it a parent. There's a fundamental difference, right? This relationship with Krishna is a permanent relationship, whereas all other relationships can maximum last that one lifetime, but this is for a lifetime after lifetime, right? So what does Krishna have? And this is where the food restrictions are inspired from, right? So Krishna has leaf, And when we say leaf, right, it includes all varieties, not just that leaf, not just spinach, right? So it includes everything under that category. So leaf, flower, fruit, and water. So Krishna doesn't say anything else here, right? So those are the things which are considered to be sattvic, correct? So those are the things that we can offer to Krishna. 9.26 is completed. Let's go to 9.27. O son of Kunti, all that you O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering to me, right? 9.28. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me, right? We've already seen this in great detail, right? Whatever we do it as an offering to Krishna. Remember Krishna Arpanam, right? I hope you're all implementing it consistently. Right? We saw this in the Karma Yoga chapters, right? So this is again repeated here. Yesterday there was a question. Kritik was the one who was asking the question. Isn't this 5.29 and 7.30 similar, right? That was the question. So that is going to be repetition because the message is so important. Now Krishna said in the Karma Yoga chapters, whatever you do it in my name, right? Why? Because I will protect you from the auspicious and inauspicious results, which is repeated in 9.28. Right. So there's so much repetition. Why? Because the message is so important, right? So even if you miss it the first time, even if you miss it the second time, Krishna hopes you'll get it the third time, right? So that is why it is repeated over and over again. Okay. Right. So let's proceed to 9.29, almost at the completion of the chapter. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. शुभाशुभफलैरैवं मोक्षसे कर्मबन्धनैः संन्यासयोगयुक्तात्मा विमुक्तो मामुपैष्यसि.
Yes, Mataji. Can we have 9.29 also? Samoham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshyosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktyam ayite teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. A clear declaration. You cannot get a declaration more clearer than this, correct? Krishna has no cause to envy anyone. He is not partial to anyone. He is equal to all. All except whom? Those who render service with devotion unto Krishna, right? For them, how does Krishna treat them? He treats them not just equally, right? He treats them as a friend. Okay, so that you cannot get a better explanation than this, right? So it's a very clear clear instruction which is clear. So therefore again this importance of rendering devotional service to Krishna, right? 9.30. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Api che suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhag sadureva samantavyaha samya vyavastito hi saha.
Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. A clear sloka again. I mean, it doesn't require great explanation. Even if a person, Krishna says, even if a person commits the most sinful act, if he is engaged in the service of Krishna, it is forgiven, right? Take example Arjuna itself, right? One of the reasons that Arjuna gives in chapter 1 is that it will be sinful for him to kill his own kith and kin, right? His own family, right? Krishna gives the answer that it is not a sin if he is engaged in devotional service. So that is the concept which is mentioned again here, right? But don't make this as an excuse, okay? Excuse as to perform sinful acts, and then you call it devotional service. I did it in devotional service, therefore it will not constitute sin. It's not like that. Krishna is the greatest cheat. He is the cheater of all cheats. Okay, so one cannot cheat Krishna. Okay, so so we should not come up with ridiculous explanations of trying to take advantage of this sloka, because this is susceptible to being misinterpreted, right? Because he says I can commit a sin and I can say that I am in devotional service, right? But you would know, right? Because Krishna as Sirodaksha Vishnu will tell you what you're doing is sinful, right? So the moment you get that faint voice, that faint whisper in your head that this is not correct, refrain from doing that, right? Because it is morally at least dubious. Okay, so that is 9.30. Just remember that you cannot cheat Krishna. He is the cheater of all cheats. Okay, so 9.31. Hare Krishna Mataji. Just
Hare
a
Krishna.
couple of slokas.
क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शाश्वतान्ति निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्त प्रणश्यति.
Krishna says, Pratijanahi name bhakta pranasyati, right? Declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. That's the full translation of the verses 9.31 we're dealing with. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Pratijanihi name bhakta pranasyati, right? This is explained in a very beautiful short story also, right? When Hiranyakasipu was vanquished by Narasimha Deva, he was very angry, right? Narasimha is the embodiment of anger. One would know that, right? Because he is roaring ferociously, right? And there was so much anger that none of the devatas would even approach the Lord, right? He was so angry. So what they did, Indra called, requested. You see this picture here is very clear. So Indra requested Prahalad to try and pacify the Lord, because the Lord is extremely angry, right? He's roaring with anger, right? What did Prahalad do? Prahalad walked fearlessly to the Lord, right? That is the faith of Prahalad. A small child, what would he have known? And yet he knew no fear, right? So there are two chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam where this scene is actually explained in great detail, right? And there are two chapters dedicated to the prayers in the stage that Prahalad offers to Lord Narasimha to cool him down. Okay, beautiful prayers that those prayers are. That's why I keep telling, if you get an opportunity, it's there on the website, it's free. Please get a try and read Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, after reading Bhagavad Gita, but Bhagavad Gita comes first. But you have to, unless you understand the basic concepts of Bhagavad Gita, then you can proceed to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam has all these beautiful, beautiful stories, very interesting stories. They explain the concepts of Bhagavad Gita so well, you know? Right? So that is the story of Prahalad and how he pacified Lord Narasimha. Okay, this is not the concluding verse. Okay, 9.32. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mam hi partha vyapashritya epi syu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudra epi anti param gatim.
O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas and Shudras can attain the supreme destination. What you are does not matter to Krishna. Take shelter of Krishna. He accepts everyone, right? So Krishna categorically mentions that for those who surrender onto Krishna, the societal grounds of discrimination no longer subsist. So all you have to do again is surrender to Krishna, right? If one does so, then there is the grounds on which the society discriminates a person would no longer be applicable to them, right? That's what Krishna explains in this sloka of 9.32. Let's go to the next one. This is 9.33. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Kim punar brahmanaha punya bhakta rajashayasthatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam.
How much more there is so of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Right? So direct command on the matter, right? Krishna again says, engage in loving service unto me. It cannot get clearer than this, right? Krishna says so many times over and over again, right? Engage in loving service unto me. Why does Krishna want us to be in loving service unto him? Why is he so bothered? Because he says, child, you have gone away from me. It's time for you to come back. Please realize this message and come back and satisfy the soul's dharma, right? That is what Krishna is most intent upon. He does not want you to suffer in this temporary miserable world. Dukhalayam asasvatam. That's what we saw in yesterday's chapter, right? This world is miserable, right? There's no doubt about that. And it is a temporary world. So Krishna says, come back to me and come back to me at Goloka Vrindavan, because you are, after all, an eternal fragmental part of mine, right? So that's why Krishna wants you to render devotional service, because that is the only way we go back to the Godhead, correct? So that is 9.33, 9.34, concluding verse. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Krishna.
Manmana
Manmana bhavamat madhyadi mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yogvaivam atmanam matparayanaha.
Engage your mind always in thinking of me, offer obeisances and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Right? Always think about me, worship the Lord, become my devotee, offer obeisance to the Lord. 4 things that you have to do. If you do that, what does Krishna guarantee? He says you will come back to me. Right? And how do you do manmana? Namasmaran, right? That is how you do manmana, right? Chant as much as possible. That is the authorized way to worship in Kali Yuga. It is the easiest way to worship also, right? It's not like in Satya Yuga where you have to sit at one place, and like we saw in chapter 6, the Ashtanga Yoga, you have to sit in one place, focus your mind on one thing. There are so many things that you have to do. Lay kusagras, find a deer skin, so many things, so difficult things, right, that you have to do. But here in the Kali Yuga, it's very simple. All you have to do is chant the Lord's name. Take the Lord's name for everything. And that is manmana, right? Engaging the mind in thinking of Krishna, right? So that is why I'm emphasizing so much on chanting, so much on devotional service, so much on bhakti, because as I've explained it before also, bhakti is the middle part, right? It's like the sandwich which is covered by two of the breads, right? Karma and jnana have their place, but bhakti is what is the way to Krishna, right? Both of this karma and jnana pave the way for bhakti, right? So it is that karma and jnana are also included in Bhagavad Gita. So with that, we conclude today's chapter. Mataji, please conclude. Yes, Mataji.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Raja Vidya Rajaguhya Yogo Nama Navamodhyayah. Sarvam Krishnarpanam Astu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your service, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So let's just take a quick overview of what we have studied so far. Broadly, only 3 headings, but then messages were very important, right? And see, you can boil all this down to just 2 words. Okay. Okay, make it 3 words. 1 is surrender. 2, devotional service. So totally 3 words. Entire bhakti chapters, the 6 chapters can be condensed to these 3 words. Surrender to Krishna, that's 1 sentence. And the next sentence is do devotional service to Krishna, right? And what we saw today was broadly that in a more elaborate manner, right? So 3 headings we had. Bhagavad Aishwarya Jnanam, we saw that this is the most confidential information, right? Confidential knowledge. We saw about Vidya and Avidya. And what is the most confidential knowledge? Most is important here, okay? The most confidential knowledge is that the way to reach Krishna is through surrender and devotional service. There are 2 other confidential information. 1, that we are not the body, but we are the soul. And 2, that we are all eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. So these are the 3 main confidential knowledge that is provided in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And the most confidential of it is this, what we just saw, how to surrender, that you should surrender to Krishna, okay? And then we saw the ways to approach Krishna, the different, that you have to render devotional service, and the sweetness of exclusive devotion. Please go through this chapter when you get time. It's a very sweet chapter, right? It talks entirely of devotion, nothing but pure bhakti, right? Please do try and get some time. See, it's only 34 verses. It's about a 50-page purport if in the book. So please try and read the purport. It's beautiful. Srila Prabhupada has really wonderfully explained the meaning, because of lack of time, we are not able to take up all the verses here. There are so many other beautiful verses in this chapter. So please do try and read the chapter. So let's conclude with Guru Pranam, and I'll make sure I do it a little slowly today. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha. Vaishnava Pranam, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pabanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, with that we conclude today's chapter. Let's see. Okay, Ashtaka Mataji. Amrita Mataji is, yeah, wonderful, right? Okay, Mataji, I'll make you co-host so that you can Mute yourself. Unmute. Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां चदुकूलचौरम् अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि श्रीराधिकाया हृदयस्य चौरं नवाम्बुदश्यामलकान्तिचौरं पदाश्रितानां च समस्तचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पदाश्रितं या करोति भिक्षुं पतिगेहहीनम् केनाभ्यहो बीसनचौर ईद्रे दृष्टा श्रुतो वा न जगत्त्रयेऽपि यदि ज्ञानमापि हरहत्यहेशं गिरिप्रसारान् अपि पापराशिन् आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौर ईद्रे दृष्टा श्रुतो वा न मया कदापि धनं च मानं च तत्तन्द्रियाणि प्रणांश्च हृत्वा मम सर्वमेव पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽद्य चौरा त्वं भक्तिदाम्ना सिमया निरुद्रा चिनात्सि घोरं यमपाशबन्धं विनात्सि भीमं भवपाशबन्धं चिनात्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं कुबन्धं मन्मानसे तामसराशि घोरे करागृहे दुःखमये निदागा लभस्व हे चौर्हरे शिराय स्वचौर्यदोषोचितमेव धन्दं व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां चदुकूलचौरम् अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि Hare Krishna.
Wonderful. This is very soulful, very, very soulful, very nice. This is very melodious. Thank you so much for that, Ashtam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you. Okay, question and answer session. Let's see. Any questions from today's chapter? Just understand, please, this one message from the Bhagavad Gita, that of surrender to Krishna. Okay, that's the only message. That's perhaps the most important message. Not the only message. There are so many messages in the Bhagavad Gita. But if you are relentless in saying that I'll take up only one message from the Bhagavad Gita, please tell me, like how I started this chapter, right, from that example by Srila Prabhupada, that the devotee asking Srila Prabhupada, which is that chapter that I should read, if I can read only one chapter. That person says, I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada says it is this chapter, right? So it is that this is an important lesson. This is the fundamental foundation, okay, that we have to surrender to Krishna. Okay, just understand that message. Okay, no questions. We have on 17th. On 17th is Ekadasi, right? So we'll have a short presentation from tomorrow and day after. I will split it into two parts. We will examine the scientific basis for the fast that is usually observed during Ekadasi, right? And we'll also examine the spiritual reason behind observing a fast. Okay, we'll also see the niyama of keeping a fast. It's not very complicated. One just has to refrain from grains. That's the basic fast. If you can, of course, all of you are youngsters, so if you can, the highest is the Nirjala fast, where you don't have even water for one entire 24 hours. Okay. But the basic thing is that you should not have grains on that day, just rice and wheat. basically, because that's what that's a staple food, right? Rice and wheat. So the point is that you should not have rice and wheat on that day of Ekadasi. We have to examine the reasons why, because we don't do anything without reasons, right? That's why this pramanas become important. It's not just saying and then doing, right? It's not like a commandment. You have to know why we are doing something, right? That is important. Okay, since there are no questions, we'll wind up today's chapter. Oh, Manisha Mataji. Okay. Yes, Mataji, please tell me. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Prabhu,
Mataji.
you said that we should read the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, Mataji.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So which part am I supposed to read? I've got the book here.
Which book do you have?
I have, this is volume 1, right?
Oh, yes, yes, the volume 1. Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So I'm actually the mother of Anjana. I know that this is a youth class.
Oh, wonderful. No, no, I'm
Right.
not taking exception to the fact that you are here. Okay. See, being
Okay.
youth is it's a matter of the heart, right? It's how you feel that you're youth. It's not a matter of age. Right. So yes, Father, I'm very glad that you're here in the youth batch, especially, right? So thank you for joining us. So don't take it on the number, okay, of the age, though it is based on that classification, but I'm very happy that you have attended the youth batch. And to answer your question, Mataji, you take it from the beginning. It's not that, I mean, or what to do, or what you can do is, the generally advised way is to read from the first book, okay, from the first canto, okay. But if you find it a little difficult, what you can do is you can go through the contents. Srila Prabhupada's publication, this one that you have in your hand, has detailed contents page, okay. So you just read one, and whatever interests you, you can read that. For example, Ajamila, you will find him in the 7th canto, okay, way down in the 7th canto. But if you go through the contents page, no, you will get the headings. So you can go through the headings, and whatever interests you, you can read that first also. Because see, these are all standalone stories. As I was mentioning, the difference between Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord speaks about himself, right? In Srimad Bhagavatam, it's the devotees who speak about the Lord. So therefore, it's much more interesting to hear when the devotees speak about the Lord, right? So there are so many stories. Shiva speaks about Krishna, Brahma speaks about Krishna, Narada speaks about Krishna. So all this, Mataji, you can read. You can go through the headings, and one by one you can read. But the recommended way is to read from the beginning. In fact, second canto, once you go to second canto and all, you'll get the story of the creation, of how this universe came into being, and how the senses came into being. All that is in the second canto. Second canto is a very complicated canto. So as you go down the cantos, you get more and more stories, right? And it's the stories that give so much value, and they add value to the lessons taught in Bhagavad Gita. See, Bhagavad Gita is pure philosophy, right? So it takes a little time to understand pure philosophy, right? And it's made simpler in Srimad Bhagavatam by way of stories. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam is very important. I'm so happy that you're taking the effort to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the question also.
Prabhu, but when I open the page, there's this Sanskrit version, and then there's the translation, and then there's the purport. Am I
Yes.
supposed to read all 3 of it?
It depends. If you want to.
The purport is very long, right? So it will take a long. Okay.
True. There are 2 ways of looking at it. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to read, then you can read just the English translation of it. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to study, that's when the purport becomes important. So Srila Prabhupada always says you should study, not just read. Okay, you should study the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. But what you can do is, you can first read the entire text. Then it becomes very easier, because it's only 20,000 slokas, right? So you just read the slokas, the translation of the text. If you know Sanskrit, well and good. But if you don't know, the translation is there, very clear translation. Okay, so just read the translations first, so you get a grip of the overall scheme of how the Srimad Bhagavatam is laid out. And then you can you can read what you want to know more about. That will be in the purport. Okay, so it's dependent upon you only, Mataji. If you want to read, as I mentioned, if you just want to read, get to know about where is in Srimad Bhagavatam, just read the verses. But if you want to study the Srimad Bhagavatam, then you'll have to read the purport also. Okay.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Nice question, Mataji. It was very nice, and I'm so happy to see gray hair in this class, because nobody has their cameras on, right, except for Hrithik when he comes on online to ask questions. But I'm really happy that you turned up in the youth class, especially. So youth, as they say, is just a feeling, right? It's an impression, so it's not dependent on age. I'm really thankful to you. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, in which case then we can conclude. We can start with chapter 10 tomorrow, same time. Hare Krishna. Let's see, I was hoping to run polls, but then I'm not getting the privileges. Hopefully that will be resolved. Once that's resolved, then we can examine, we can revise the chapters earlier. So I'll be asking you about 3 questions in each chapter, and that helps you cement what you learned in the class firmly in your mind. Okay, so let's hope I get the credentials soon. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. Let's meet tomorrow, same time. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sulochana Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.